to Cooking with Bubbles. I'm Lisa.
I'm Rodney. Let's get started.
Hey.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Favorite part of my morning. Oh yeah.
Love that. Pour a little bit of bubbles.
Yes.
Stuck a slice of orange in there this morning.
Oh, so you're not having cranberry then?
Not today. Put a little bit of OJ in.
Juice, true mimosa style there.
Yeah, I don't often drink straight up mimosas, but this is a little treat today.
Cranberry in my cute little carafe. We have matching carafes now.
I know.
Cheers.
Clink.
Clink.
Yums.
Well, here we are, Lisa, back to doing what we love, and that's cooking while drinking Prosecco. So we would invite our audience members to pour your own glass of bubbles and enjoy the show. I also want to just point out that we are wearing our fancy new aprons that have Cooking with Bubbles logo on it, and we'll tell you later how to get yours.
Sounds good. You know what, Rodney, the nice thing is we are getting to spend time together like we love to do on any given weekend day. And we're in our own kitchens, like a lot of people spending more time at home these days. And the really great benefit is I can be in my kitchen and I don't have to clean up after you this time. So
I have to clean up after myself, which is not fun for me.
I know. Okay.
So Lisa, what are we making today?
So today we're going to make a really delectable treat called Orange-Champagne. And it uses bubbles. I mean, oh my God.
Yay.
And before we get started today with our recipe, we have another really special treat for our audience. We've invited our friend Scott in to come in today to share his wisdom and knowledge about sparkling wine. He's a wine pro. So I'm looking forward to having him here today.
All right. Here he comes. Hey, Scott. Welcome.
Hello. How are you two this morning?
Better now.
I noticed that you put a slice of orange. That way it constitutes it being very good for you because vitamin C is important part of the diet. So it's a smart move.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I've made this recipe of I've seen this recipe made. I'm going to correct myself of Sabayon made when my husband made it for a party, and we did it over fresh berries. It was absolutely delicious. But you can also put this over cake or use it as a dipping sauce for cookies. Today we're going to do it with our fresh berries. And what's really nice about this recipe, it only includes 4 ingredients. It has egg yolks, sugar, orange zest, and sparkling wine. That's right, bubbles. So Scott, we're going to invite you to share your tips and tricks as we make this recipe this morning. I know that you've made it before. Scott and I go way back, probably 15 or more years ago, and met at a wine tasting event. So
oddly enough, one of the thousands perhaps I've done, but no, it's been a very fun 15 years. I hope to not have any flashbacks. I used to make Sabayon tableside at a local restaurant for years. And it's once somebody sees it happening, everybody else wants it. The problem with making it is it's going to be so good, your family members or your friends or your guests are going to want to come over and have it again. So it's great that you're showing people how to do it because it's not difficult. The problem is you're going to find yourself making it a lot, if that's a problem.
Not when it's this easy.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I'll drink bubbles to that. All right.
So Scott, you said it's really easy, but when you're first reading through the instructions, these sound a little bit complicated. So to prep, I've gone ahead and turned on my cooktop because you got to get your water simmered so that you're ready to do your video. So I've got that done. I've also already pre-cracked my eggs, and I've got them just the yolks. We're not going to use the whites today. So that's one of the things that this recipe calls for.
Correct. And I do believe it is important. You're going to have, as a good rule of thumb, if you wouldn't drink the wine, please don't put it on your food. If you know, and you'd be surprised at the amount of times in the length of time I was in the business, people would show up to the store and they say, I need a cheap bottle of white wine to cook with. Well, if you wouldn't drink it and you wouldn't serve it, please don't put it on your food. But easier said than done. But this, and a very good thing to do is, as you get ready to make this, is take the bottle of sparkling wine out of the refrigerator, pour yourself a glass, taste it, make sure that there's not no fault with the wine, that it's corked or there's anything any problem with the wine. Sorry. And let it come up to room temperature for half an hour, 45 minutes if you can. If you notice in kitchens globally, the wine that's added to dishes is almost always on the line. It's always room temperature. You don't want to, you don't want to make your eggs curdle and make scrambled eggs, obviously. Well, maybe on a Sunday morning, but not when you're making Sabayon. So if best practice is to let the sparkling wine that you're using for the recipe come up to temperature. Certainly drink yours cold, but for the recipe, let it warm up.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's exactly what I do. I have a glass of bubbles that's going to go into this, but, and that is a fantastic tip, really. So for this recipe, it calls for 6 egg yolks, and it calls for 4.5 tablespoons of sugar and just a pinch of salt. So I'm going to mix that into my egg. And then it also says to use the zest of 1 orange. So I'm also going to toss that in to my mixture. Get as much of this as I can. That's part of the reason I wanted to do an orange mimosa with orange juice today, because it just is another nod to the oranginess of the Sabayon. I think it's going to be good. So once I get this mixed together, the recipe tells us to slowly incorporate 3/4 cup of bubbles. And we're using Prosecco today. And I filled mine up in a champagne glass. So I'm just going to slowly add it in. It's only going to be 3/4 cup, but I'm going to whisk it in slowly. Oh, nice.
We'll just dump it in like I did.
All right, well, we'll see what happens.
It's all good. It looks beautiful.
It does. Looks really good. So I've got that setting up. Put that to the side.
I'm starting to have flashbacks. I was hoping I wouldn't, but it'll all go away once I get to taste it, or virtually taste it in this case.
That's right. Rodney, how's yours looking?
Mine looks good. It's taking my water longer than I thought it would to get warm.
Okay. So mine is up to a moderate, kind of a simmer right now.
Yeah. And just a food safety tip that I want to mention is you want to make sure your eggs are fresh. And the best way to do that is to float them in water. And if they sink to the bottom, they're good to use. If they rise to the top, they're not. That means they've been compromised and they have oxygen in them. So don't use them if they float. Awesome. All right, so now that everything's mixed together, I'm going to place it on the saucepan. Is your hot water hot enough yet, Lisa?
Good to go.
Okay. Well, we're going to hold this over, and we're going to, as Scott told us earlier, we're going to cook it slow and slow. And we don't want the bottom of the pan to touch the water. So I put my water level down so that it wouldn't touch, even if I let it rest on top of the pan. So I'm good to go.
It's like you've both done this table side for years. This is perfect. Maybe this is why people order it so often. I never understood it, but being on the other side, I like being on this side of it.
Yeah. And we're going to cook this till it's 170. We each have our thermometers here, so it's going to take a little while. So, Scott, we're using Prosecco in our recipe. What are some of the other types of sparkling wine?
Well, great question. And it's a wonderful topic. As I've done education for years, the popularity of wine with bubbles has exploded in the last decade or so. For example, when I was much younger and much newer in the business, I could go to any given retail store or a grocery store in Arizona, because they're so frequented so often for wine sales. And there were half a dozen to maybe 10 different wines with bubbles, led by champagne, obviously. I did a count knowing that this was coming up. There were 59 different wines with bubbles at the store closest to my house. And that is not a specialty wine shop. It is a store that virtually everybody that's going to watch this shops at here in town. And they're scattered throughout the country. So to have it increase tenfold, and so, you know, double every single year for 10 years is really amazing. And I think there's a lot that goes into that. You're using Prosecco. When I started in the business, there were 2 Proseccos and nobody gave it a second thought. There were about 20 million bottles of Prosecco and wine with bubbles produced in Italy at the time. Fast forward to 2020, there were 660 million bottles of sparkling wine produced in Italy. Italy went from being, when I started, 7th globally to #1 by 20%. They produced 20% more wine with bubbles in it than the next closest country, which is France, who may or may have not invented it. The one thing about the luck that I've had in the business as I got to travel, wherever I go, they invented wine. So if you have been to Croatia, they invented wine. The Greeks invented wine. Californians invented wine. We all know that's absolutely impossible, but they're proud, and I understand that. The one constant across all my travels is Champagne from the Champagne region in France is the benchmark. Globally, Australia, New Zealand, Spain, Italy, Australia, California, Oregon, Washington. That is what winemakers, men and women that get bit by the wine bug, try to duplicate. And I think that says a lot about the history of Champagne in general, which can be attributed back to the Benedictine monk Dom Perignon, which people probably recognize, who in 1697 in Haute-Vieux, France, opened up a bottle of wine that was hidden from a hailstorm in a cave. Who knows when, so who knows how long it was in there, but the bottle wasn't cleaned properly. And because the yeast and the bacteria in the wine, it had bubbles in it. And he was famously quoted as drinking stars. And that's probably, I haven't looked at the label, but I guarantee that's on 3 or 4 dozen sparkling wines across the world being produced in different countries. So it is incredibly popular. I think one of the appeals is Prosecco is a great example. You can get a very good bottle of Prosecco for $8. I believe the one you're using is $7 available retail. And those can go up to, 12. A really expensive one is 20. And the good thing about that is it is made in a very cost efficient way. It is put in a steel tank. It is essentially put in the bottle and then filled with fine carbon dioxide, and it's ready for sale. So it's not the painstaking process or the expensive process of champagne in France. So, and regardless of what I know and what you hear from me today, and thanks again for having me, by the way, the wine that is the best for you is the one that tastes good to you, regardless of what experts say and professionals. If it doesn't taste good to you, it takes nothing away from the provenance of the wine. It is not a good wine for you, period. The nice thing about wine with bubbles is it fits every price point. If a $150 bottle of wine is your everyday drinker, things good for you. There's one that fits that. If you're budgeted for $10 a day, there's one that fits that. Prosecco kind of leads that charge. Globally, wine with bubbles is an everyday wine. In America, we're getting there slowly as we consume more and more wine with bubbles in it, but it is perceived as a special occasion product. That is not the way in the rest of the world. As I've been lucky enough to travel, on a Tuesday afternoon, there's wine with bubbles on the table. On Wednesday evening, it's just not in celebration, or maybe it's celebration of life. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Have a good time now. So, but that's starting to hit the American shores. As working in the wholesale business as long as I did, I started to see the increase in, Prosecco and more cost-effective wines. Cava from Spain is very, very popular. I'm seeing sparkling wines from all over the world on specialty cocktails and serious beverage programs now at the go-to restaurants and go-to bars. So it's starting to happen here as it does the rest of the world. And I say about time. I made it a personal goal of mine when I started doing this over 20 years ago to make bubbles an everyday wine like it is over the rest of the world. I have not been successful, but it has not been for lack of effort or certainly lack of consumption.
Well, you've got my vote on that, that's for sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You know what, Rodney, how's your Sabayon looking? Mine is starting to thicken nicely.
Yeah, mine is thickening. I'm about 150 degrees, so I got a little ways to go.
Okay.
Did you take yours off the heat already?
Yeah, I did, because mine is already starting to thicken. I'm just going to check. Goal is to get it up to about 170 degrees. That way you know that your egg. sufficiently cooked. I'm gonna have to put mine back on. Mine is not up to 110.
Yeah, mine's getting there. 155.
Yeah, almost there. I was
I'm gonna-
concerned with thickening. You know, the recipe is simple to make. I will
You don't end up with scrambled eggs. Oh, there we go.
by the process because I haven't made it before, especially not for keeping the pearls. So I want to make sure that this turns out nice, but it is thickening absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, this is the way I eat my fruit. And this makes my mom very happy. She knows that I have a big bowl of berries. I didn't tell her what I put on top of them. She's just happy that I'm eating berries. So I'll make sure she watches this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm about 140 right now, so I think I'll let it continue to cook.
I'm almost there.
All right, well,
Rodney, yours looks right. It looks almost ready to go. You just tell by the look and the consistency of it. You do this a couple times, you'll get good at it. Just whisk and whisk and whisk and pour and consume, and all of a sudden dishes are dirty and you're happy. Wonderful.
I'm balancing too, making sure I'm not cooking it too fast or letting it get too hot on the bottom. So kind of holding it above the water, above the pan.
$163. I can tell. Flashbacks.
Off a little bit. So now I gotta get it heated back up.
Yeah, you can stir with one hand, drink with the other.
Totally.
Everybody wins.
I need a third hand to hold the thermometer.
Production assistant.
Yeah.
Got my husband's hand trying to reach in and grab the Sabayon.
Third hand.
The third hand. Once we get this up to temperature the way it's supposed to be, then we're going to cool it down pretty quickly over a bowl of ice and water.
Perfect.
Almost there.
I never had that luxury. I poured it immediately over something and served
I'm
it.
there.
And then the table next to him said, "That's great. Make some for me." And then they would start ordering. And all I did for the last 3 hours of my shift was make Sabayon.
Whenever you're up to temperature, go for it.
Yeah, mine is up to temperature, so I'm going to slide this over. So
Yeah, and the nice thing about this is when you cook with a particular wine, it's best to serve it. That's why it's always important to, cook with wine that you would consume on an everyday basis, that you would be happy to pour for your guests or your friends or your family. This is a great way to do it, and the affinity that Prosecco and Cava and Champagne and sparkling wine has with food is unbelievable. And I think that's, as Americans as a generality are more concerned now about freshness and farm to table and where their product comes from, you're starting to see them experiment more. And the versatility with wine with bubbles and food, it's lower in alcohol, it's lower in calories. It's typically, if it's a brut or an extra brut, it's lower in sugar. So there's nothing but wins right there. And the versatility of food, take your favorite microwave popcorn, put a little butter on it after it's done if you want, and a glass of Prosecco or a glass of sparkling wine or Cremant de Bourgogne, and it's not a meal, but you're almost creating a moment, and you will remember it. I used to do it as part of seminars, and they would roll their eyes and they would have 2 or 3 pieces of popcorn in a sip, and it just changes everything. And it makes so much sense. And the versatility, certainly with how we eat in Arizona, lots of spicy food. Champagne's wonderful with spicy food. Wine with bubbles.
Yeah.
butter donuts are also good with sparkling wine.
Yes, the options are endless. Just make sure you have a bottle of sparkling wine in your refrigerator at all times, because you never know.
Right. I'm
It
finally.
smells really good. Does yours smell really nice, Lisa? Like really nice and orangey?
Yes, it does. It smells like a dessert.
Yes.
I'm at 170, so I'm just now getting mine ready.
Okay.
On the ice bath. I've got a larger bowl, and then I dropped inside of it my smaller bowl, and the larger bowl has ice and water in it. The idea is to whisk this until it starts to cool. Lots of whisking. This whisking is making me thirsty.
It is making me thirsty. Too much whiskey.
You've earned it. Absolutely, you've earned it. You've earned the next sip or the next glass, as it were. And as with food and wine pairing and the versatility of Prosecco and champagne and sparkling wines, it's important to combine like flavors and like aromas. Obviously, there's a reason big red wines are served with, big heavy cuts of red meat. As a rule of thumb, white wines are more delicate wines with fishes and things like that. If you have a really big, strong, powerful dish, light, simple, sparkling wines are going to kind of get lost in the mix. But there is a sparkling wine that's going to go with that. As you get to reading wine labels, and for the rest of the world, I think wine labels are more understood now. But when you get to sparkling wine and champagne, it can get kind of confusing. For example, Brut is the standard. It represents about 90% of all sparkling wine that's made is labeled as Brut. And Brut is essentially very little residual sugar, so it's dry. That gives it affinity with different dishes and different types of cuisine. Extra Brut is zero dosage, so there's no sugar added at all. So if you like to drink gin, Extra Brut is a perfect champagne for you. It's great with sushis and things like that. Then you'll see Extra Dry, which says dry, but it means a little bit sweeter, which is, I didn't make the rules. These are the rules. Brut is standard. That's what you're going to want to drink more often than not. If you want it a little bit sweeter, you would drink an Extra Dry. So there's a little bit of residual sugar left over, and it's noticeable. And that gives way to Sec, which translates to sweet, and then Demi-Sec, which is half sweet. So it goes Brut, Extra Brut's the driest, then Brut. That's going to be the benchmark. That's what winemakers globally try to make the best Brut that they can make it in their house style. So every time you open a bottle of his or her wine, it tastes just like that. That's the game for winemakers who make wine with bubbles in it. And then an Extra Dry, a Sec, and a Demi-Sec. So there's a style for you with whatever you feel like eating. And the beauty of sparkling wine as a generality is it's wonderful by itself. Who doesn't, today was great, have a glass of Prosecco. Today sucked, have a glass of Prosecco. Something tells me your good day got better, your bad day is not as bad as it was. That's right. Kind of how it is. And when you can incorporate it into your food, and that's, Rodney, yours looks perfect.
Yeah, mine is done.
I saw a big smile when you tasted it. So
I tasted it with my finger. Yeah. It's cool. It's no longer warm, and it tastes really good. It's sweet with a little bit of citrus, and I think mine is ready to go.
Mine too. Mine cooled down very quickly. It's ready.
That's ice bucket is the trick.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do now, just pour a little bit over top of our fresh berries.
Yes.
And drizzle it on. I've got a little bit of got a mint leaf I can throw on there too. I'm going to put a generous amount of this Sabayon on there. That looks good. One more dollop. Okay.
What do you say? You need smell-o-vision? Is that what you need right now?
Right? I wish you could.
Perfect.
You know what? It is
so good.
So pretty. Absolutely beautiful.
Outstanding. Very, very well done. You guys are pros.
I don't know about that, but I am really about how it turned out.
What I will say is we're definitely getting better at this whole thing.
Take pictures too, of course. I want to be able to share this later.
For sure.
Yeah, and you should be able to place whatever's left over in the refrigerator. Should keep for days, I would think, maybe a little bit longer. Eggs have been cooked, and something tells me it's not going to last that long. I'd be shocked if it ceased tomorrow. That's usually how it works.
It's going down today.
Yeah.
It looks really good. So we've got it ready to taste. So Lisa, are you ready to taste this?
Yes.
See how this tastes?
Yes.
All right. I've got some blueberries and raspberries and strawberries.
I've got blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, and blackberries.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Brunch in a glass.
Mm-hmm.
That is really good.
And it's pretty. It's really pretty. Wow.
I'm surprised that we made that quickly.
Yeah. It came together really quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. It came together very quickly.
Awesome. Well, there you go. Now we know how to make Sabayon, and we know it's delicious.
We may have to invite some guests at some point and have it our delectable dessert.
Yeah.
So good.
Now I get why everyone ordered it. I loved watching you guys make it. It was a highlight for me. And the fact that it turned out well, even better. So I'll probably be over in about half an hour as I go out for my stuff and make sure that it tastes as good as it looks, because it looks amazing.
It is absolutely delicious. I really love the the orange zest in there. It just really brightens the whole recipe. Really, really nice.
Indeed.
Thank you so very much for taking time to join us today. We really appreciate it. Your breadth of knowledge absolutely amazes me. I mean, over all these years, you still come up with new things that I've never heard before, and I absolutely love it. As a thank you for you being part of our show today, we've got a nice little gift for you. It's a Cooking with Bubbles apron.
I was gonna get online and purchase one. Even better. I'll get one as a gift. But those are awesome.
Yeah, so we've ordered some of these. This happens to be one of mine, but we've ordered some and they'll be here very, very soon. And it's got a nice little adjustable tab so you can enjoy that too. But we really appreciate it. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your knowledge.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Well, hopefully
Thank you for having me. I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you, Scott. And we'd like to also thank our virtual audience for joining today. Thank you everyone for watching Cooking with Bubbles. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you know when we post new videos, and also to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/cookingwithbubbles. Facebook is where we publish all of our recipes and our pictures that we take along the way as we're making our dishes here on Cooking with Bubbles.
And as we mentioned before, if you'd like to know how to get your own apron, you can just send us an email. We'll tell you how to do that. We have them in red and black and blue and white. So Scott's going to get one of our signature black aprons as a thank you as well today. And also, if you have any suggestions on recipes that you would like to see us make on Cooking with Bubbles, you can also email those to us. And send us your photos. If you've taken, if you've made any of our dishes, send us a picture of it. Our email address is cookingwithbubbles@yahoo.com. Well, that takes care of it for today. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Rodney. See you next time.